Hey guys, this homework lesson, ThinkCentral lesson 1.7, will be a review of how we use models to choose a denominator and how we choose a common denominator. First review problem on the homework, they're asking us to use these fraction bar models or fraction strips to find common denominators to add up 1/2 and 1/3. You can see that 1/2 here is there and 1/3 is here, so they're not like fractions. So we need to find a common denominator so we can actually add those up, because we cannot add halves and thirds. So you convert halves into sixths and thirds into sixths, and you can see that if you multiply numerator and denominator by common multiple, so in this case half, you'd multiply that by 3, so times 3 times 3, and you end up with 3/6, and then 1/3 you multiply by times 2 times 2, and you end up with 2/6. So those are very easy to add, because 3/6 and 2/6 would be 5/6, and you can see here that you have 5/6 altogether, but your common denominator would be 6. Best way to do this is to find the multiples of 2, 2, 4, and 6, and the multiples of 3. 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 2 is 6, and then you found the least common multiple, which is also the least common denominator. Next problem is to compare or add up fourths and halves. They're unlike fractions, so we need to find a common denominator. I've done the multiples, so 4 times 1 will be 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12. 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 4 is 8. You can see there are a couple common multiples of 4 and 2, but we always want to use the lowest common denominator, so we will use 4. We will use 4 for this common denominator. So using the double rainbow strategy, somewhere over and under the rainbow equivalent fractions lie. I'm not having to change 1/4 at all, because that's already has the lowest common denominator. And I am having to multiply this by 2 times 2 to end up with 2/4 here. So I end up with 1/4 plus 2/4. And that would be shown here in this model. Now in this model, they've changed them both into eighths. So 1/4 is equal to 2/8, and 1/2 is 4/8, and so you end up with 6/8. But 6/8 is the same as 3/4, so I'm not sure why they changed these into eighths first. They should have just gone directly and changed them into fourths, because that's the lowest common denominator. Regardless, the answer is going to be 3/4, the sum. For this next problem, I've decided to draw a comparison bar model using this fraction bars. So this first fraction bar here is cut into 10 pieces, so each one of these would be 1/10. So that would be 1/10 here. And they're asking me to add those to fifths. So I'm going to go ahead and make fifths out of this one. So that it's very difficult to draw these correctly. So something like that. So I'm adding 3/5 here, 1, 2, and 3/5. I'm adding 3/5. I'm adding 1/10. Obviously, you can tell that those are not equivalent fractions. I need to change fifths into tenths. So if I take my 3/5 and I make those into tenths, I would have 1/5, 2/5, 3/5 by doing this. So that would be 6/10. So I can see here that I have 6/10 plus 1/10, and that would give me 7/10 as my sum. And I've also shown it another way. You have 1/10, so a common denominator would be 10. So the tenths don't need to change. It's just times 1 times 1. And to change fifths into tenths, it's times 2 times 2. So 6 tenths, and you can see there that that would give me 7 tenths as a sum. All right, looking at this problem, I have 5/6 plus 1/4. I've drawn the models. Not going to be easy to find a common denominator between 6 and 4. So I'm going to do the multiples. 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12. So my lowest common denominator is going to be 12. So I need to change each of these fractions into an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 12. Looking at this, to get from 6th into 12th, I need to multiply by 2. What you do to the bottom, you do to the top. Equivalent fractions, you can't stop. So that's 10/12. This is times 3 times 3. Make sure you are drawing your arrows because that helps you stay focused. 3 times 1 is 3, so you end up with 10/12 plus 3/12, which would be 13/12. Then you'd want to simplify that. 12 goes into 13 one whole time, so it's 1 whole. And that would be 1 part left over, so that would be 1/12. So the sum would be 1 and 1/12. And this would be the exact same problem, except you're going with tenths and 15ths. So you do the multiples of 10. 10 times 1, 10 times 2, 10 times 3. I'm going to stop there because I know that 15 times 1 and 15 times 2 would give me 30. So my least common denominator and least common multiple is 30. Now I convert each of those into 30ths. Double rainbow time, times 3 times 3, times 2 times 2 will give me 22 30ths and 3 30ths. Adding those together, you get 25 30ths. Now something to keep in mind there, 25 30ths, you look for a common factor of each of these. And I know the 5 goes into each of these, so if I wanted to simplify this, I would divide each of those by 5, ending up with 5/6 as my sum. On ThinkCentral, you don't have to simplify it, but it's always best to reduce or find the lowest common terms, lowest terms for that fraction, and 5/6 would be the lowest term. So if they have a common factor, divide numerator and denominator by that factor to simplify the fraction. We're looking at a word problem, so the most important thing here is unpack it. Bashir walked 3/4 of a mile to his friend's house and another 1/8 mile to the park. What is the total distance he walked? So we know it's going to be finding the sum. So let's start off. So let's say he walked here. Picture models are great. So draw a picture model. I'm going to do a number line here. So he walked 3/4 of a mile to his friend's house. And then he walked another 1/8 of a mile to the park. Pretend this is a park. There, that's a tree. So my picture model represents the problem. I can also do a model here, part, whole. I have 3/4 here, and I have 1/8 here. So this is going to be a part, whole model. So what is 3/4 plus 1/8? They're unlike fractions. We don't like it like that. I need to change fourths and eighths into a common denominator. I do know that 4 times 1 is 4 and 4 times 2 is 8. So I'm going to change 3/4 into eighths, and it'll easy to add up the eighths. So it's a times 2 times 2. So 3/4 is the same as 6/8. And adding 1/8 to that, you end up with a total of 7/8. So he walked 7/8 miles going to his friend's house and then to the park. All right, another word problem. So we're going to unpack it and enter an equation. Of the songs downloaded from music website on Tuesday, 1/6 were country. So you've got some country songs here, and then 1/10 were rock songs here. So I got rock here. Country plus rock is the total, so it's a part, whole. And I'm going to add up 1/6 plus 1/10. You can see that those are unlike fractions, so we need to find equivalent fractions between 6 and tenths. You can do it by doing the multiples of 6, 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36. Let me write those down. 6, 12, 18, 24, and 30. And then you know that 10 is going to be 10, 20, and 30. So your lowest common denominator is going to be 30. So I'm going to change these into 30ths. So here I know that 5 times 6 is 30. So what you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So that's 5/30ths. And what you do to the bottom, 10 times 3 is 30. 1 times 3 is 3. So you end up with 5/30ths and 3/30ths. And those are like fractions and equivalent. So we can add those very easily. 5 plus 3 is 8. So 8/30ths of the songs were either rock or country. Now you notice that those 8/30ths can be simplified. If you divide 8 by 2 and 30 by 2, you end up with 4/15. So correct answers would either be 8/30ths or 4/15. 4/15 would be the better answer because it is in simplest terms. So that's the end of our review lesson 1.7, using common denominators to add unlike fractions. You can use fraction bar models, you can use multiples. Those are the best ways to find common denominators. Make sure you are asking for a lot of help if you need it. Need clarification, ask a parent or email me, and we will help you build mastery. Well done.